Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another sad edition of Game Over Ottawa. Charlie here tonight, and I'm joined by Louis from the Zubcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Like unrelated to the Sens, I've been doing excellent. I just finished my undergrad like yesterday, so I am flying high. But we'll dive into the Sens. It's a whole different
Yeah,
story.
yeah. Well, first of all, congrats on that, man.
Thanks,
Um,
man. Thank you.
if we run out of things to complain about Sens wise, like 20 minutes into the show, we can talk about your future employment hopes now that you've finished your
Yeah.
undergrad. God, what a I don't know. Like if it was like a 7 p.m. game, I don't think I'd be as mad. It's just that we've had to watch back to back 9 o'clock games, and
Yeah.
it hasn't been worth staying up either time. Um, another reason why I've always been jealous of people on the West Coast as far as like sports times go for them
Yes,
because
for
they get to
sure.
watch they get their early games are at 4 p.m. That's awesome. If you're working from home, just stick the game. Oh, I'm so jealous of that. No midnight streams after a brutal few games in a row here for them. So for those who didn't watch the game, Sens lose to the Colorado Avalanche. Just a not fun game in general. 6-4, but asterisk empty net goal. So um, as is the usually the case with the Sens. Um, I don't know. I usually try to avoid going like kind of point by point in most games. I do have like a few general things with the team I want to talk about, but was there any specific moment, any specific play in the game that either had you, either reeling in like a serious negative way, or anything that you saw specifically from a player or a couple players that as a bright spot? Like I'd love to start either one of them. You can start negative or positive. I'm cool either way.
Oh,
Just if you could just pull something out of this game that's good. And here's where it's gonna be tricky. I'm gonna say don't mention special teams because I want to talk about those at length later on. So
okay.
like like a
Yeah, I
player
do think that's a
specific
good
thing.
point.
Yeah.
I have a few things. I do think there's more like, well, okay. Personally, I didn't get to watch the Arizona game as much. I had like two different beer league games that night. So I was
Oh,
just like
yeah.
going back and forth across the city trying to get to hockey games. So I missed most of that. Um, but still, I feel like there's more positives, at least to draw from the game today. Like they ended up out shooting the Avalanche. I believe they got over 40 shots.
Yep.
That's impressive against a really stacked Avs team, let's be honest. And that just got Cale Makar back to you, which like of course he comes back for his game back against us. But I thought I'll get the negative that stands out right out of the way for me, and that was our boy Travis Hamonic continuing to somehow have a spot in our top four. I don't know what I think the worst play for sure was when he straight up just passed it right in front into our net, and Drouin almost scored right away from the corner. I don't know if you remember that, but my God, that was awful. That was not great. But aside from that, I think there were a lot of pretty good things. The third line was being used to shut down the Avs a lot. So the Kubalik, Greg Crookshank line. Of course, I'm going to pump up my boy Crookshank
Oh,
here,
you got it. You
but
gotta.
I mean, you
Yeah.
could see by the jersey behind me,
Yeah.
the beautiful Hockey Fights Cancer Bell Senators Crookshank jersey. But no, they were playing really well defensively, and that's something that they really hadn't had much of a chance for in terms of deployment, and because of the types of lines they were going up against. Like this is the ultimate test. You're being put in defensive zone starts against the McKinnon Rantanen line. Like that is you can't do any tougher than that. And honestly, they were doing pretty well because most of the goals were, power play, which we'll talk about later. But they were following the assignments well, especially given that the Avs have such a dynamic rotation on the cycle. They were sticking with the puck carriers and closing down lanes super well. It was very, very impressive. So that's something I liked a lot. And I mean, there were some bad penalties from the fourth line, but I thought this was Yuri Smekel's best game in the NHL so far. I think he was excellent. He showed exactly why he's kind of the perfect fourth liner to have. I know in the past few years as Sens fans, we've had a lot of that same type of player on the fourth line where it's just like a grit grinder who's mostly a defensive specialist. Whether they're actually effective defensively is a different question. Austin Watson. But you know,
Christy Domenico,
yeah,
Nate
exactly. At
Thompson.
least
It's been a revolving
Domenico,
door of like
yeah,
they're
Tom
supposed to be a
Pyatt, you have those
defensive like
guys.
specialist, but
Yes, they
just
might
because you
be
can't score
oriented
doesn't
that
mean you're a
way.
defensive specialist, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So no, it was a breath of fresh air because like what Smeagol can really do that you don't see from our other fourth liners is that and a lot of it is through like checking and down low and play on the boards, is he can really extend cycles in the offensive zone a lot. And that's super impressive. And that's why he's got a spot on the second unit power play, right? Like he plays the net front and the boards there. And it's been really nice to see that from him. Trying to think about other things. Zub had a few plays here and there. But one thing I kind of noticed touching back to Hamonic is how much better Artem Zub is at shooting the puck for tips than Travis Hamonic. And that is something that I don't think I ever really looked into. But today it's like, even if it's from a really tough spot, he's shooting it so perfectly while close to a player instead of having an absolute blast that misses the net by a mile. And it makes so many more high danger plays because even if you tip it and it still gets on net, the goalie can then not properly adjust in time to fully absorb it. And then you get a scramble in front. That's an extra very high danger chance instead of the puck just, missing, going to their defenseman and then straight to an exit. So
yeah,
I think there were a lot of positives to pull from for sure. Like Timmy was flying a little bit. Sure, he didn't score, but he was playing much better, like probably the best hockey that he's been over the last couple of weeks, which is nice. Still feel like there's got to be something wrong with his wrist or his hand. Given from post-game interviews, he's always got some sort of brace on or a lot of tape around his upper body. So
yeah.
I hope he gets better soon and maybe just, from being under the tutelage of Martin and Alfredson, we'll see that soon. But I'm pretty happy with, I know it was a loss and it was a late game, but given the rest of the road trip, I think this was definitely one of the better games.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where how do I put this? Like, it sucks that I'm always being a downer about this, but it's true. The team has looked better. Like, I think the team has looked really solid, if not like, like a good team in the majority of the games in December. Like, I think that's a fair thing to say. They're three
Yes.
and eight in December.
Is December the new November? I mean,
When you play only like 3.5 games in the month of November, I guess it has to be like
I
it.
guess it just got delayed. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
maybe it's not November. It's games number blank to blank, right?
I think it must be.
It's,
I think it must be because like we were talking about how this team looking good and losing wasn't good enough 6 weeks ago, and we're still talking about like, well, at least they looked good, and it's just, I mean, I I guess you pull positives where you can, because
yeah.
it's once again before Christmas and playoffs are there's no shot at this point. Like, let's be real. Let's be the East is crazy, and like, even if it weren't for the fact that the East was so top heavy, it would still be a long shot. But just the teams in the East this season are so tough to pass, let alone catch up to. So,
Doesn't help that the Islanders have like 9 OT
oh,
losses.
dude, it's
Like,
oh my god.
how does this keep happening? I don't get it.
And
Like,
and and the Sens have none.
man,
The Sens haven't gotten one loser. The Sens had the lead in 4 straight games and have 0 points.
I love it
Just
here, man.
just lose in overtime, please. Just get there. Oh my god. I
Yeah, it's
I've
bad
never
when
seen
like the
anything
whole
like this.
Twitter timeline was like, just give me a loser point. I don't care if Colorado scores 5 seconds into OT. I just want the loser point. Like, it's ridiculous. Shout out to Julio Hashem on Twitter who keeps posting this graph, but about how every time it's just, have you gone to overtime in North America this season? All the rest of the teams. Yes, of course. We're in December. Ottawa. No. Like, how does this happen? I don't understand. And both games in Sweden went to extra time.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it's
it's it's this
insane.
like it's this crazy mix of an inability to hold on to a lead or or catch up in a game. Like they're somehow unable to do both. They can't hold on to a lead and they can't fight their way back to tie a game. It's just this awful mix of I don't know what. It's I don't know how that it's been like for a season that where there have been so many clear like indicators on we as a fan base know what's wrong with the team. Like we can pinpoint like the issues that this team is having, but at the same time, it still feels like such a weird season, and that like you know what I mean like we know the
Yeah.
what's going wrong with this team, but despite that, the results being what they are is still so weird and tough to explain. This team that you know, um, on paper should be fantastic and is scoring, can't hold a lead. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of it there's still and even today there's still so much debate on is it the goaltending or is it the defense? And there are so many people fighting about that these days.
Oh, trust me, I
Am
know.
I gonna am I opening a
I've
can of worms when I
seen.
ask where are you at? Where are you at in
Oh,
this debate?
oh man, like it's tough. You could. There's definitely blame to be put on both. Like because and this is every single day, and I had to watch it today, and I'm pretty sure there's some of the people that I've argued with about this in the chat in my fantasy league. It's every game we're talking about whether it's the goalie's fault or the defensive systems,
Yeah.
and it is both. Like both have been, suboptimal for sure. Like Corpusalo made some insane saves today. He faced some very high danger. And you look at each individual goal, you can't really fault him on any of them. Like the one that we were arguing was the I guess McKinnon's third goal that ended up not getting overruled by offside, which we can touch on that later if we want
Yeah.
to, because
Yeah.
man. But it looked like maybe JBD, while trying to pressure McKinnon, was a little too indecisive and put himself into a position that screened Corpusalo. But like the Rantanen tip, just ridiculous. How do you expect anyone to stop that? That is a
No.
crazy play that gets so much horizontal movement in such a small amount of time
It was
and
nuts.
directly into the net. You can't expect a goalie to stop that. And yes, you'd like maybe your goalie to, get some steals for you, but and the Sens haven't had any of that. I can actually double check here to see, but I don't think for those who don't know, I do a lot of hockey analytics. I've done some consulting for some professional teams. But I'm just checking to see because I do track goalie saves or goalie steals. Like if a goalie has a higher goal save above expected than the team win differential, then it classifies a game stolen by a goalie. And if my memory serves, yeah, Forsberg doesn't have one, and Corpusalo either. No. So the Sens are one of the few teams that don't have a stolen game by a goalie this year, and that's tough. But yes, the problem is it's such a ridiculously difficult environment to play in. We've seen the defensive structure and the plays that have been made by this team in the defensive zone. It's hard to build any sort of momentum or confidence, and especially when and this is not related to systems and more the deployment of the goalies, but it's hard to get into a routine for both goalies when you're riding the hot hand this much to the point where one goalie has a bad game, you go to another, and then they're coming in cold after having not played for a week and a half,
Yeah.
and you can't really do much. Like we saw Forsberg was at his best 2 years ago and partially through last year when he was getting consistent starts. And that doesn't have to be every game, right? Like eventually you do need to rotate between guys and you can match certain goals against certain teams. Like for example, the Avs are they're a strong team overall, but let's say you're going up against a really strong team on the rush that's able to generate a lot of that. Ideally, you'd like to start a goalie that's maybe better there and not as good on the cycle, but won't have to face that much. So you're gonna be able to match for that, but you need goalies to get into a routine. That's you talk to goalie experts and goalies. The first thing they say is if they can get some sort of schedule down and consistent reps, that is what's most important. And the Sens haven't really given their goalies the opportunity to do that. It's like this goalie gets 4 straight starts because they get one good game randomly, and then the other one comes in cold, and then both goalies we feel down on both of them. because one of them had a bad game, so you put in the other, and then the other one's coming cold and they have a bad game because obviously they haven't played in so long. So it's kind of a lose-lose, and I'd like to see them just rotate. Even if one has like a really good game, they win 3-1, go to the next and maybe start to get both of them heated up a little bit. And then you can make decisions down the line. But we're so early. Well, I say we're so early in the season. It's like maybe a third of the way through, and at this point, the season may already be lost. But that's just another argument to really advocate for trying to get them both up and running at the same time. That way you can feel confident about whoever you're going in with, because so far it hasn't been great for sure.
Yeah, and I think on that note, on the subject of the defensive systems, let's talk special teams. We'll start with the positive, because I feel like it sounds weird, but despite the fact that they only went 1 for 6, the new revamped Alfie power play just feels really solid. Um, Even though they
Yeah.
aren't converting, just the I don't know what it is about it. Is it just the fact that it feels like they're keeping possession in the zone more consistently? Is it the fact that the puck movement itself feels a little bit more dangerous? I don't know what it is, but like it just feels like, and I don't know, maybe part of it is also just how brutal the power play has been over the last month or so. And now maybe it's not even like that good of a power play, but just as Sens fans, we're like, oh, awesome! Like an average looking power play, this rules. I'm not. I don't feel like I'm level headed enough to really know the difference at this point. Um,
We're all
but
too sense filled.
yeah,
We're
exactly.
like
It's
anything better than like the norm that's been set over the last month is just not great. But yeah, like I do think again, it is a little bit of a small sample. It's been what, 2 games, but the
yeah.
efficiency, like it's significant. The already just looking at the conversion rate compared to the prior. I was having a back and forth on Twitter about how in such a small amount of time, it's crazy how drastic the changes have looked, and it really speaks to how fundamentally flawed the last one was, and how at least to get it to an acceptable level, easily fixable it was, and this wasn't happening before. I'm obviously happy we're here now, but looking back, it's like, man, you're telling me we could have fixed this like that? And again, 2 game sample size, right? But it's been noticeably different and better. I do think a lot of that can be attributed to because beforehand, and this is directly be shown by how Norris is actually scoring on the power play now, specifically from one
Mhm.
timers and from that side that he's so dangerous at and that we know he's been consistently good at in the past. But I think they were way too narrow in terms of the umbrella that they were running. And because of that, they weren't really getting, not just that, but they were also not moving enough at the top. Like the only consistent play they had was download a Brady and then bump that up to Batherson for the high slot, or like Brady eventually crashing the net and scoring goals. That was the only thing that was consistently dangerous and happening a lot. But you weren't getting as many Norris one-timer chances. And when you did get them to him, he kind of had to take a second because the pass was coming in a little bit too vertically of an angle rather than horizontal, so he could really hammer that home. He had to, settle it down, and by that point, the other team's closing on him. It's better to pass it off. So I think the big change is like, yeah, they've adjusted their positioning better, and they're moving a lot more, which is nice. Like a lot of quicker touches, a lot of just small little changes with their feet. It's nice to see that, especially for a guy like Stützle, who we know is so good at coming in downhill and getting a shot off. Obviously, we haven't been able to see it a lot, and that could be because of his injury. But like, do you remember in preseason how he scored like 2 of those against Toronto, just galloping down from like the top of the circles and sniping it? It's so nice to be able to have a shooting threat on both sides. Like even
Yeah.
and especially when they're both like same shot, so it's not 1T, and the goalie's not expecting, like you're thinking it's just going to pass it across, but no, he just darts down and absolutely snipes a wrist shot top corner. But I'm really just happy that we finally have maybe a power play that could be good, especially compared to what it's been in the past. The PK, on the other hand, is something else. If you want to
Yeah.
talk about
The
that.
Yeah. This is a game that was uh really solid 5-on-5, completely wasted by the special teams. For those who didn't watch the game, as I mentioned before, Sens went 1 for 6 on the power play. On the PK, the PK went 1 for 5. Um, the Colorado Avalanche scored 4 power play goals in this game. Can Alfie run the PK as well? Do you think? Can we look into that? Maybe
I
if he
mean,
can
the
make.
one guy we kept is Jack Capuano, and he's in charge of the PK.
Yeah. So
That's the thing. Like he's being helped by Ben Sexton now, right? And he's like the whole team is obviously under Jacques Martin too. So maybe we'll see changes there. It just won't be as, quick as we've seen with the power
yeah,
play, which let's be honest, we didn't expect it to change that quickly on that end. So maybe it'll take time. It'll probably get better. But also, like this is one of the best 5-man unit power plays you'll see, and you have to face in the
that's
league.
fair too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, all 6 goals came from 2 guys, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that doesn't help you. It just makes you, yeah. I don't know. Did the Sens do a good job of shutting down everyone else, or did these guys just have the puck all the time? I don't know.
At that point, maybe you focus the guys that keep scoring.
Yeah, you might want to. Yeah, you might want to start leaning a little bit
Which they
heavier on
were
the guy.
doing at 5-on-5 pretty well, but
Yeah.
yeah, on the PK it was a completely different story.
God, yeah. The only yeah, only 5-on-5 goal that Colorado scored, other than the empty netter, was McKinnon. By the way, McKinnon's first goal of the game was his 299th of his career, and so I think everyone just knew that the next one was coming in this game, and then he ended up scoring 3 more.
Yeah, that one I didn't have on my bingo card at all. That was I was like, yeah, okay, he's gonna get 300. Oh, there's the hat trick. Okay, that makes sense. Big
Yeah,
game. Oh, yep, and the fourth, of course. Why not? Let's while we're at it, might as well.
yeah. If you're gonna do it, you might as well score 4 goals in the game where you score your 300th. Um, yeah, I don't know what to say about the PK. Like, God, it's just so it's and like and I try not to be a bummer all the time, but I also don't want to come away from this being like, oh yeah, the Sens PK was at 20%, but it's because they played the Avs. Like I don't want to be a huge bummer, but I also don't want
Like,
to pull that and
yeah,
be like that's the reason, and then just kind of ignore it until the next game.
like we would expect it to be worse than an average game
Right.
because you're facing the Avs. But
Yeah.
this was a little bit extreme, let's say.
It's
I
it was
agree.
terrible.
I wonder if they changed the personnel a little bit because they've been rocking the same kind of, well, forwards wise anyway. They've been rocking what I know they don't have Joseph right now, and when Pinto comes back, he probably figures in on there. But it's
Yeah.
essentially been Kelly, Giroux, Stutzla. Um, has Greg gotten reps on there?
Let me check the ice time just to figure it
Because
out here.
Kastelik probably did. But I'm just trying to think of guys who have like most of the season because Kastelik only came back recently.
Uh, might have to check natural stat trick. Let's see.
I was about to say I have Money Puck open here. Let me just take a look. Forwards.
Because the NHL website used to show that on the box score, and since they updated it, they don't anymore for some reason.
Oh, we love, dude, the amount of work I had to do in my own player cards and dashboards to update asset pulling from the new NHL update. Like, oh my God,
It's brutal.
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Kelly, I guess Chartier's out, right? So that's another
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, well, Greg has gotten, this is not just today, but like essentially the forward ranks in terms of ice time. This is just 4-on-5, doesn't count 3-on-5. But this season, in terms of forwards, Joseph and Kelly both with 53 minutes. Chartier 46, Giroux 31, Stutzla 27, Greg 17. So Greg has actually had more penalty killing time than Norris in less games.
I don't like necessarily hate that.
No, I don't either. Like, but I don't know. There's gonna have to be changes for sure. I
Yeah.
think a lot of it will be structural first because they got to figure out just what the hell's going on. because right now it just looks bad, just straight up.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any specific flaw you can point to. I think you kind of just have to rebuild what that killing structure and mentality looks like. And I'm curious to see what happens. Like I have trust in Jacques Martin. Um,
Mhm.
so hopefully we'll see results relatively soon for that. But like I don't think we can expect anything crazy until maybe the new year. We'll start seeing some improvements here and there, but not quite fully, right?
Yeah. Um, that said, though, I think especially with this game and how he played, I think it's safe to say. Well, both Sminkle and Crookshank. I think it's safe to say that Sens fans are on board with both of them staying. Um, so when the team is healthy, a fourth line including Spankel and Crookshank would be pretty great. Like if you're just if you're picturing that third line now, obviously this is like a month from now when he's back, but
Mm-hmm.
imagine that third line of Pinto, Greg, and Joseph,
Yeah,
and then ideally maybe you ship off Kubalik and you get
he
a
needs to be
fourth
traded to
C
make
in
room for
return.
this.
I don't know because like I'm just kind of over Kelly, Kastelik. Like I'm just kind of
Yeah, like
over
Kelly
those
had a really
guys.
good start. He's trailed off a little bit. I don't think he's been a liability. He had a couple good plays today, but he's taken really stupid penalties. He
Yeah.
has been for sure. And yeah, Kastelik had like a couple nice plays today, but um like I don't know if you remember looking back to the preseason. This guy was falling so often while skating. It was like Brady Tkachuk rookie season levels of just falling on the ice. Um, and I don't know what it is. And I don't know, he just wasn't playing as like last year. He played like a decent fourth line center, but I was just not seeing it at all this year through the preseason, through the start of the regular season. And then he got injured. I'm still going to give him a little bit of time once after coming back from that injury to see if he can get back to what he was doing last year. But
Mhm.
yeah, the problem is you had too many guys that play that same type of style on the same line, and it doesn't work. You can't roll a fourth line of Parker Kelly, Mark Kastelik, and Austin Watson because they all essentially try to do the same thing, and it's not at a good enough level to do anything because the rest of their toolkits don't complement or supplement each other whatsoever. So that leads to shifts where they're completely useless because they're not facing the one particular situation that they are all good at and then not good
Mhm.
enough at the rest to be able to bail them out. And that's a big problem. And that is why you bring in Schmeichel and Cruikshank, who are both still excellent checkers, as we've seen over the last little bit. And
For
checking is
sure.
not just about going in and finishing your hits, it's about going in, creating turnovers through contact on the forecheck, retrieving pucks, and being able to pressure your opponent into poor plays, right? It's not just about mindless hitting in fights. These guys are able to chart effectively and without taking themselves out of the play. And that's exactly what you want from bottom six guys. They can also provide offense. I've talked about Schmeichel's ability to do that down low. Crookshank obviously has a lot of scoring potential for a bottom sixer. He's still leading Belleville in goals. There's a point where he had more goals in Belleville than anyone except Gannett and Sokolov had points.
Oh my god.
Like that might be more a testament to how bad Belleville started off this year. But
Right.
man, like that's the thing. This guy's got scoring potential in the bottom six, and that's a huge upgrade over what we've had. Like, get a place in Westboro, man. Like it's time. I
Yeah.
hope the team gets there.
Yeah, for
But
real.
if those two guys, like even if it's with a Catholic, but yes, ideally, I don't know what really would be available out there. The thing that I will say is I would love to see Crookshank and Pinto together because I think that combo could work really well because I do think Crookshank has gotten better defensively for sure. Last year, that was one of his biggest strides. A lot of emphasis was placed on his coaches by that, and he took strides. It was big improvements in that area there. But the way that Pinto is able to involve himself defensively and retrieve pucks and have a really underrated, that's one thing I think we don't talk enough about Pinto about, and it really got hidden by having to play with a snake bitten Joseph and Tyler Mott all of last year,
Oh,
is that
dude.
Pinto's
Yeah.
playmaking is really good. It really is. The problem is no one was able to finish stuff, and because of that, none of it really like impressed on our minds and was able to stay as a concrete skill that he has above average. So I think that combined with Crookshank's checking and ability to get open off puck and, being able to play the net front well could be a really good combo. Whether those guys are playing with Greg or Joseph, I think either way would be really nice. But realistically, if we're talking about a fully healthy lineup, yeah, I do think Crookshank's probably on the fourth line, and you have Pinto, Greg, Joseph on the third, because with Shabbat coming back too, in that case, you do need to make cap space, and Kubalik just seems like the guy that has to go, especially if you, and I don't know if the Sens would do this, but scratch Hamonic, because obviously you can't send him down because of the
Oh, if
no
we can
move
only
clause.
hope, dude. Like,
I think at this point you have to hope for a JBD Gannett 6 and 7 next year if you can somehow move Hamonic, because obviously that top 5. I know I'm being overly optimistic here, but I'm just
I
saying in a
love where your head's
utopian
at. I
world.
love it, but yeah.
Yeah, because you have Sanderson, Zub, Shabbat, Chikrin, Brandstrom. That's your top 5. They're all above average NHL defensemen. They're all very strong, like
Mhm.
defensemen overall. They have their strengths and weaknesses, but they deserve a spot on the lineup and they deserve a good bit of ice time. But yeah, Hamonic is the weak link there for sure. And I think JBD has definitely gotten much better. I would like to see Gannett play, whether that's, I'm not saying necessarily over JBD and scratch JBD, but like if there's an injury, I do think I'd like to see Gannett get some looks. Like he was the last guy, and I don't know how much of that is because of specific, because we were so close to the cap at the start of the season that we had to like waive certain players or keep certain players up over others because of a smaller amount of money that they were making. But Gannett was the last guy to be cut on D, right? He was the
Yeah.
last guy remaining on the
Yeah.
roster. And he has been incredible in Belleville. He's leading the team in points now, I believe, or he's out of guys still down there, because Crookshank may still be ahead of him. I don't know. But Gannett's been exceptional. And I really do think he could be a solid bottom pair or extra guy throughout his career as an NHL defender. I really truly believe that he could be a nice little diamond in the rough there, just as an extra guy for teams to carry around and potentially put in on the bottom pair.
Yeah. Just to, put into perspective how, I mean, I've also like I think I'm definitely right about it this year. Last year I was very vocal about how badly I wanted Travis Hamonic off this team. Um, and I think the difference is last year he did have quite a few defenders. Like he had quite a few people in his corner, which not so much this year. But when both Shabbat and Zub were out this season, I didn't think he deserved to be dressed even then, even with
Oh,
two
absolutely.
defensemen out, right? At that point, like and
I don't know that he's a
oh
top 10 defenseman in this organization. Like I think it's like, because
no.
you have the top 5 that we mentioned. You have Gannett, JBD, that's 7. You have Lassie Thompson 8, Tyler Kleven 9, Nicholas Matenpalo 10, Jacob Larson 11. I don't even know if that's the order, but I'm just counting guys that are above.
Yeah, yeah.
That you already got 11. Is Dylan Hetherington still here? Like, hold on, let me pull it up. I just updated my data before this.
Okay.
Let's see where Travis Hamonic ranks. In my standing points above replacement model, that essentially looks to see how many standings points to his team a player contributes. Um, Travis Hamonic is the second worst defenseman in the league. Would you like to guess who is the worst? And I'm only saying this because of a very specific Sens connection.
Who is the who's the is it Zaitsev?
It's Nikita Zaitsev.
Dude,
Uh,
this is how bad I immediately thought Hamonic was last season. There was a time when Hamonic was in the lineup at early last season, and Zaitsev was scratched, and I was like, well, let's just see what the team looks like with Zaitsev instead of Hamonic. And to be fair, last season it was worse. It was worse with Zaitsev rather than Hamonic. So it's just a little bit of vindication for me knowing that those are the two worst in the league right now. Oh
yeah,
wow.
it's tough. Like I don't
Wow.
have any category where Hamonic is in double digits percentile wise.
Oh my
His
god.
his highest is zone offense at a 9. Oh, zone
God,
defense is at a
and that's
1. It's
even like,
bad.
oh my god. And yeah, that's the thing. I think Hamnick's got to be the only guy in the league with a 50-50 shot of a shot from the point either hitting the net or going straight into a defender's laces, and then it's a rush back the other way. Like, I've never seen
Yeah,
a guy fire a shot straight at a defending player so
I
consistently.
I hate that he's labeled as a DFD because he absolutely is an OFD in my mind, for sure.
Yeah.
Like he's at least, well, not anymore, but like 2 years ago, he was still able to, get a lot of shots off, even if it was for better or for worse, but generate individual expected goals and chances, even if that could result in stuff. He's never been like the big kind of defensive guy. I think just because he had high potential, he played big minutes for the Islanders, got moved around, and he's a big defenseman. He kind of just got that label. Um,
Because I was wondering
and
this
it
on a
just
previous
stuck.
episode, like in his prime, in his young days with the Islanders, and when he got moved for like an insane price to Calgary, in his prime, was he ever a solid shutdown defenseman, or was that just the label that people put on him, and the rest of us just kind of were like, okay, like because in his prime with the Islanders, that would have been what, like, I don't know, what years would that have been?
Let me
Let me
pull it
look
up
this up because
here.
I'm completely lost on when that would have been.
Yeah. While
Um,
you pull that up, I'm just gonna take us my data dates back to essentially anything post COVID. So starting
okay.
in 2020, 21, Hamonic's zone defense score, this is out of 100, all right, was a 27. The year after, 21, 22, the first year that he ended with us, a 3. Year after that, which was last year, 7. This year, 1. He's never
Oh my
been the
god.
yeah, it's not good. The thing that I will say though is at least in the past, um, he was at least, and there would still be absolute stinkers in this regard sometimes, but he would be at least somewhat competent in defending the rush. And
Right.
he'd be able to close off guys because he's not the worst skater, but his numbers were around league average in terms of both, to a lesser extent, stopping the opposition from entering the zone, but more so preventing them from getting chances when they did enter the zone against him. This year, that has completely evaporated. It's kind of like how Nick Holden had that effect last year, where you could tell he lost a step, and then his ability to defend anyone with speed completely evaporated, just gone. And this is what we're seeing with Hamonic now. And the problem is he's not good at defending in the zone either, but he's being paired with offensive guys. And yes, that's just because the makeup of this team is what it is, but it's not working.
Yeah.
It
So
really isn't.
his I don't know, his quote unquote prime with the Islanders was from 2010 to 2017. Um so I don't actually know. Cuz then he goes to the Flames for 3 seasons. Uh so I don't know if he was like that top end defensive guy that he was touted as, cuz yeah, he was a I just remember back in the day on NHL 11, Travis Hamonic had like real good like A minus defensive potential if I remember correctly. This is back in the day when it was like the three categories with the letter grades. Because like when he was in the Islanders in 2010, I was 14 years old. You think I gave a shit about like fancy stats? No, dude. Eye test, hit a guy hard. That's hell yeah. Old school
Yeah, that's
hockey.
nerd stuff. Let's
Yeah,
ignore
that's nerd
that.
stuff, dude. I'm no, absolutely not. But no, like clearly he was highly touted because he went to the Flames for a first and 2 seconds, and no one cares what those 2 second round picks are because that first round pick, Noah Dobson,
Oh, wow. He is
dude, dude,
incredible.
the Islanders turned Travis Hamonic and Griffin Reinhart into Matt Barzal and Noah Dobson. Think about that. Oh my
Oh
god.
my
You have a
God.
young, not very good defenseman with defensive upside? Trade him. That's what I'm learning from this conversation. Move that move that big, not good at defense, but teams think he is defenseman. Move him every time.
Yeah,
Wow.
I, dude, Dobson's been so good he's over a point per game on the season,
He's
isn't he?
yeah, he's nuts.
Wow.
Um, especially if you're in a fantasy league with plus minus, he's plus
Oh,
19. So he's like
I do have him, not in the league with plus minus, but yes. He's speaking of guys who have a great slap shot. Noah Dobson has one hell of a slap shot. That guy can let it rip. Like he's super fun to watch. I still remember that was 2018, right? That was the same year as Brady, I
yeah.
believe. So many
Yeah,
good defensemen in that draft. My God.
yeah, that
Like
was the year
Evan
that the
Bouchard,
Islanders went.
Quinn Hughes. Man.
It was Dobson and Wallstrom, I think. They got both of them in the first round.
Yes. Yeah, they got him back to back, didn't they? Like they had two
Yeah.
picks in a row, I think.
Yeah, I think it was their own and then the Calgary pick.
Wow. Hamonic for Dobson.
Isn't that just the grossest? It doesn't even matter that the two second round picks didn't work out. Who cares? Like that's
Yeah.
oh my
But by
god.
curiosity, who were do you have who the second rounders ended up being?
Those picks were here we go. Uh Ruslan Ishakov, who is 23, 17 points in 24 games in the AHL, so like might be something
That's
there.
good.
And
Yeah.
then Samuel Bolduc, who through
Oh,
22 games has 1 point, but like I guess defensive defenseman with the
for sure. I
Islanders.
do have him in my model here.
So
Hold on. Yeah. He's been good defensively this year for them. He hasn't been getting
so
much minutes, but as a rookie, it's been pretty solid.
so like maybe a couple years down the line he establishes himself as like a solid like number 6 guy. So you get Dobson and an everyday defenseman, and then maybe that other guy who is putting up a decent chunk of points, pretty young still in the eight. Like that's
What a
so
robbery.
stupid. That is so stupid. Anyway, the Sens gave up a third for Hamonic.
Because we didn't have a fourth. We got to make that clear.
That's
Let's.
so. Oh God, that's so bad.
I yeah, I don't even know. Like why I don't know where to begin with him. With our boy Travis. He seems like such a great guy. And like the
Yeah,
vibes in the room with Hamonic are great, and I'm absolutely sure he is. I mean no disrespect to him as a person,
yeah,
but there's just been some really bad plays on the ice that I would like to see another defender play instead. It's as simple
and
as that.
also one of the toughest dudes I've ever seen. Period. Like I was saying on a show very recently, the guy could lose a limb and like he'd be back on the ice in 10 minutes. Like
Yeah.
he's nuts. He's one of the toughest guys to ever play for the Sens. Um,
Mhm.
it's just a shame that the on ice
But it's
product
at this point.
is as
Yeah. Yeah, not ideal. And it's okay. Maybe he'll turn it around next year because for some reason
well, we know
he
where
will
he's
be
gonna be
back.
next year because he's got a no move clause. Oh,
You know
it
what
was
this is
so
making me
sweet of
miss? It's making me
was
miss having Mark Borowiecki as our number 6.
oh man.
I miss Boro. Speaking of
Yeah.
great character
Great
guys,
people. Yeah.
great people. Oh my God, could not say like I couldn't say enough to pump up Mark Borowiecki as a person.
Canada's own, man.
And like
Canada's own.
honestly, like by the I know like at the start it was maybe a little rough, but by the time he ended up leaving, and I think because he's not playing right now, right? I don't believe so.
No, I'm pretty
Uh,
sure he's retired.
he's retired, yeah. Uh, but towards the end of his career, man, he actually developed into a really good defensive checking like bottom pair guy. He
Yeah.
totally did. Like he fit that exact mold. Like maybe not to quite the level that like Radko Gudas does, who's another guy that I absolutely love and was really hoping that the Sens would sign this offseason. Like I know ended up not having the cap, so wouldn't really have made sense. But imagine a third pair of Eric Brandstrom and Radko Gudas. Like, oh my God. That
Just
would
just
have been
anyone
simply
that would let Brandstrom run
insane.
around, you know?
Yeah, like I don't know what his situation is with his injury now, but like Radim Simek got put on waivers earlier this season, and he's another really good guy that maybe not doesn't profile exactly like Gudis, but he's another guy who's incredible checker, very strong defensive player, underrated puck carrier too, and makes a lot of good small passes just to keep the offensive flow going. Um, I would have loved to have seen him with Branny, but it's okay. We have Branny Hamonic. Although I guess they're not playing together. Once Shabbat comes back, we'll probably have Branny Hamonic, I should say. I
God, I
do
just
wonder, like, I I don't even know anymore.
I just it sucks because no matter what, somebody is playing with Hamnick, and I feel bad for Brandstrom, but at least it's not Sanderson 70 games
Brandstrom's
the end
been
of the
so
season.
good recently. I know, like, on the PK today, there were some moments where he was okay. But seeing him play with Zub recently, and even with JBD over the last couple of games, man, he's good. Like, and I know, like, I don't know if anybody else sees this comparison, but just stylistically, I kind of see a little bit of like a Mackenzie Weegar light in Brandstrom.
Mm.
And just he is such a good both ways in transition. That's one thing. I think Brandstrom, you could argue, is our best defender in terms of like when the opposition is rushing in. He's one of the best at stopping them and preventing them from getting chances, stopping them, stopping up at the blue line to prevent them from coming into the zone too. Like he has been so much better than when he came into the league. Because that's the thing. All of his coaches were like, he's getting chewed up off the rush. Absolutely. And that's the big thing that he did at the start of last year is maybe he wasn't displaying those high IQ level of passes or those crazy long range breakouts. But man, he was making all the right plays defensively. He was being an absolute stalwart on the rush defensively. And now he's starting to bring in finally more of those more dynamic plays that we know him for. And he's just such a
Hmm.
well-rounded defender. Like even though he's 5'9", and let's be honest, that's probably a little tall given how he
That's
looks.
generous.
That's
That's
probably on
that.
skates.
I was just about to say that's
Like
him. He walked up on measurements day wearing skates, and they just kind of went, "All right,
yeah, yeah,
that's
exactly. But no, he's been solid, and he's the perfect kind of guy to have as your number 5. If anyone gets
yeah."
injured in the top 4, maybe it's not happening right now because again, our boy Travis is taking that role. But he's the kind of guy that jumps up when there's an opportunity to help in the top 4 to patch up a hole. And when your team's fully healthy, he's an excellent guy to anchor a third pair. I've no complaints about the guy. I know we traded him for Mark Stone, and he was supposed to be like the second coming of like, let's not say Eric Carlson because that was always unrealistic to start with. Um, but man, it's just such a breath of fresh air to have so many good actual defensemen on this team compared to past years. Because even looking at, let's say, start of 2020-21, Brandstrom hadn't broken in. Zub was an unknown. What did we have? Shabbat? Chikrin wasn't
20
here. Sanderson was still
2021.
developing. Like our
I'm trying to
decor
think.
was
I'm trying to
like
think of
Shabbat.
who did, because that was the Canada division season. So who did
Yeah.
Draisaitl and McDavid burn for 8 points each a game against the Sens that year?
Mike Riley and Nikita Zaitsev.
And Mike
That
Riley
pair,
looked all right, honestly. Like
dude,
with the
this is
Sens,
what I'm going to say. The year we traded him to Boston, he was like half a point per game as a defenseman. People don't remember this. Mike Riley, and I know he had some really, really bad plays. Like that
yeah.
one game in Vancouver at the start of the year where he was probably directly responsible for 3 goals. One of them because he just straight up fell on his ass while trying to skate backwards and had no pressure around him. But hey, he's been playing for the Islanders this year and he's been good. Not the best guy defensively, but again, as someone who can
But
come in and provide offense from like down deep in the decor,
but
not bad.
who else has been a half a point per game as a defenseman on the Sens?
Who?
Michael Del Zotto. I don't know if you remember that. Dude was right on that half a point per game being sent to
He
Belleville and
wasn't.
then getting his real estate
Yeah,
license in Florida for some reason.
he wasn't as bad as I think people made him out to be. But I think just the contract he was given was an uphill battle to begin with and kind of tainted
Yeah.
any sort of expectations we had with, oh man, why did we do this? Right. And that, but he was genuinely like a fine number 6 guy, not a problem
Yeah.
at all. Um, but yes, again with these wonderful, for some reason, multi-year defenseman contracts.
No, yeah, that I don't know. That 2021 defense.
Braden Coburn was on there, Eric
Josh
Goodbranson.
Brown.
Oh, the pinches. Although that wasn't that year, that was the year after. But man, you remember the ozone pinches that we'd get from Josh Brown that made just the least amount of sense, weren't going to where the puck was or where it was going to be. He'd just drift down, and then, oh wow, this team's got a 3-on-1 against us. How did that happen?
Yeah. And
Oh,
then about 15 games each of Christian Wolanin and Victor Mete. And
I remember being so excited when we picked up Mete off waivers.
oh, me too. Me too. I don't know why, but I was. Uh
He's got to be one of the few players to have played for the Habs, or not for the Habs, Sens, and Leafs in such a
Galchenyuk,
small amount of time.
Mete, uh
Because I remember
so
doing Sens Doku about this.
that's a really good one actually. I don't think because I've been doing a Sens I've been doing my Sens Doku grid the last I don't know 5-6 days in a row. I don't think I've
It's so
gotten that
fun.
one yet. So I mean I probably would have defaulted to Mete or Galchenyuk.
Mhm. But it's funny specifically for, or was that the case? Okay, no, Galchenyuk moved around, but Mete has been slowly migrating west. He
Yeah.
started with the Habs, went to Ottawa, then Toronto, and now he's in Philly. Slowly making his way over to the West Coast. He'll get there eventually. He'll sign with Minnesota very shortly. And then he'll take a trip south to Vegas, and then he'll finally get to Anaheim
God,
soon enough.
now I'm stuck on this. I'm trying to think of like some goalies. Like, did Tugnut play for the Leafs? I don't think he did.
Doesn't Hockey Reference have something for this? I feel like they do.
Uh,
Recent debuts.
welcome to Sens Doku, the podcast. No, Curtis McElhaney never played for the Habs because I knew he played for the Sens and the Leafs. I'm stuck on goalies for some reason. I feel like there's a goalie answer to this, but I'm blanking on it.
You're right. I feel like there totally should be.
'Cause
There's got
no
to be
Tug,
guys from like the 1920s,
yeah, like
like Charlie
like a
Conacher
Don
or something.
Beaupre or something. Let's
Yeah,
see.
let's. Did Frank Cyclone Taylor play for?
Beaupre played for the Sens and the Leafs, not the Habs. I'm getting 2 out of 3 on all these dumb guesses.
I feel like I saw
Ah,
something about this, like way back in the summer when I was more into Sens Doku, and I was like, I need something to fill like my 40-minute commute to work. Like, what am I gonna do on the bus? And then I just did a ton of Sense Dokus, and those were great.
yeah.
But
I can
man,
never like do them. Like I don't like sit down and just do them. I have to have like it open on my computer like all day, and I'll just occasionally go back, and then a name will pop up in my head. Because
yeah,
otherwise, I
you're
just
just
sit there
doing
for like an
random
hour and a
work,
half.
and then
Just
you're like,
yeah,
oh, Brian Smolinski.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I had that.
Yeah,
Was today the one with Todd White? I had that moment with Todd White. I'm gonna say I
was there
think
a
that was
Minnesota
today.
Square?
It was the no, that wasn't today. That was yesterday. It was Minnesota Rangers Square. I was going for an all goalies because my first 2 answers for today were Brian Elliott and Ben
All
Bishop, and then
goalies Doku
I
or
couldn't
all
do
goalies
it.
sends Doku?
All goalies sends Doku, but
Oh
I
my
only got 3.
god,
I got Elliott,
you're
Bishop, and Leonard
crazy.
in there, but and then doing sends Doku, I've realized now that just like when in doubt, just put Mike Sillinger, and like there's a good shot.
Oh yeah,
It's
Mike
yeah,
Sillinger. Matt Cullen works.
Yeah,
Um,
Matt Cullen is an underrated. I love using Matt Cullen, even though he played what, maybe 15 games with the Sens in his
I mean,
career.
Cylinder played less, didn't he? He
Yeah,
played like
yeah.
9 games or something.
But
Who else
Cullen
is?
was great because I remember specifically that year he was acquired at the deadline. He was getting like 3 breakaways a game and never scored on them. So gotta love Matt
Hmm,
Cullen.
that's a very Sens thing of him.
Oh, for sure.
Dean McCammond is another one that is actually so underrated for these because
I
he
used
played
Dean McCammon
for.
today for the Flames Blackhawks square.
Yeah, I remember I was like
Number
one of
30,
I
was he
got stuck on
37?
Edmonton, Calgary for so long.
I think it was number 37 with the Sens.
Maybe, perhaps. Yeah, because he played for what? Chicago, Edmonton, Philly, Calgary, Colorado, St. Louis, Ottawa, Isles, definitely.
Like,
Man. Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites to use for that for sure.
yeah, I didn't finish it today though. I could not think of a Leafs Islanders Sens connection. I had no shot on that one. No clue.
Yeah.
When
I'm trying
Travis
to go through
Hamonic
the
plays for
chat
the
to see
Leafs
if
next
anyone has
year,
said.
then there'll be one. But
Yeah. Like I see Lejoie got mentioned in here, but I don't think like I think that they're just saying for someone that's Toronto, Ottawa, because I don't think he
yeah,
played for Montreal.
yeah, Damian Rhodes. Yeah, Damian Rhodes, who was part of the that Brian Berard Wade Redden trade back in the day.
Damian Rhodes, one of the best goal scorers we've ever had in nets for the Sens.
Man, I don't know. I think we should probably start wrapping it up here. We've just gone
I think
full
that's fair.
Sens Doku, and I mean I love, honestly, dude.
I'm having a blast. Yeah.
No, I could do an hour-long podcast every night where it's just name obscure Sens player. It's the
Oh
best.
yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely. It's so much fun. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Anything that can
let's do
get me
this.
to
And when
use.
some if you need to like pull just a name out, what's the most obscure name that you like to pull out? What's your go-to like really obscure? Because I have one, and I don't know why, but my go-to has always been Ryan Patulny.
Oh,
I
that's a
don't know
good one.
why. That's just my go-to.
I think there's one that I liked, but then it became a little bit too like it became kind of like the Barkov is underrated of everything, where
Okay,
everybody uses Yurki Yokipaka, I feel. I've seen
Kevin.
that be
Yeah,
used a lot because that's a great one. It really is.
it's so good.
Um, and I don't I'd like to use Bob Kadelsky just because of how actually ridiculously good he was here. He was here for 90 games combined, scored 47 goals.
Did he really?
And
Holy
that
shit!
includes that was between 92 to 94 for the Sens. That was
What's
on
the
a
start?
bad Sens team. That's the first 2 years for the Sens. And the dude
God.
got 21 goals in 48 games and then 26 goals in 42 games.
So he scored more goals the second season, which is like the
Yeah.
start of the dead puck era.
Yeah.
Good for him. All right. Well, holy.
Yeah.
That's really good.
He's a little more well known than some of the guys that we'd say who'd maybe just played like 15 games.
Yeah.
But I like using him because I can be like, hey, this guy was gross and nobody talks about it.
I
Yeah.
like that. I'm gonna have to keep that one in mind for a Sens Doku one of these days.
He's played for a good bit of teams too. Like he played for LA, Florida. Oh no, only LA, Florida. Never mind. I thought he played for like 3 or 4 other teams.
Okay,
But
well
no,
when I see a Florida LA square, I've
you
got
know,
one. I've got one in the
yeah,
back pocket.
exactly.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap things up here. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Louis. Do you have anything that you want to like plug? Where can people find you? Where can people find the Zubcast?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Louis _Boulet_. Of course, if you want another Sens podcast to indulge in during these terrible times, you can follow and listen to the Zubcast. We're on every podcast platform. It's been a fun time over there, I will say. Although we're gonna have we should have a couple of guests on fairly soon, which will be a fun time. And personally, for me, I am currently working on building the website to host all of my visualizations and dashboards for any sort of hockey analytics stuff. So that'll be out soon. It'll be at lb-hockey.com. I'll type the link down in the chat. So if any of you guys are nerds like me and love your hockey analytics, then be sure to check that out pretty soon.
Awesome. All right. Well, one more episode of Game Over Ottawa to be seen before Christmas. That's going to be the last game of the season is going to be on Saturday night. Or last game of the season, last game of this pre. It's 1 a.m. guys. Give me a break. The last game. Yeah, the last game before Christmas. Gonna be a home game against the Penguins on the 23rd. Mod's gonna have that one, and I don't know. Do we expect? I mean, I guess we can't expect a win. Do we even bother hoping for a win, or do we just know that Carlson's gonna score a hat trick?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to that game. I need to see Crookshank play live, so they better win. They better do something. I'm hoping,
you gonna wear your
man.
Crookshank jersey? I hope so.
Yes, I absolutely have to.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me on, man.
Dude, it was a blast.
It's always so much fun to come on here, whether it's with you or Mod. Like it's always fun coming on here. I'm always looking forward to the next time.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the stream if you enjoyed it and subscribe to SDPN. We are closing in on 100,000 subscribers. So, maybe a little late push for that before the end of the year. I don't know. It might be a bit of a tall order, but closing in on 100K. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe and of course like the stream and go back and watch every single episode so far this season. If you haven't, leave a comment and like those ones too, and just get that algorithm running. Just this is how we like it. All right, everyone, have a great night, and Mod will see you on Saturday night. Bye, everybody.